I know there are so many different people out there that claim what they're following, the diet they're following, the lifestyle they're following is the way to do it. But just following someone else who has acne or PCOS and expecting to get the same results from them is unrealistic.
Welcome back to another episode of Self-Dom Beautiful Humans, a safe place to learn and get inspired to live your healthiest and most fulfilling life. I am Dom, your host, and I feel so grateful to be living my passion by getting to interview inspiring and knowledgeable guests. Today's episode is one I have wanted to record for a long time. I've been sharing my own health journey for many years, highlighting the lows that have come with going off the pill, the highs I have felt since reintroducing meat back into my diet, and more. The journey isn't one I have been on alone, and one person who has helped so much is my naturopath. Victoria from Sana Wellness has played such a key role in the understanding of my own health, getting in tune with my own cycle, and has helped me out of feeling lost with a missing cycle to actually feeling empowered to know I'm in control of my own health. Victoria's mission is to empower women to stop ignoring the signs your body is giving you. Together on today's episode, we aim to inspire you to debunk the myth that experiencing symptoms is normal or just part of being a woman. I'm really excited to share all of Victoria's amazing knowledge on this week's episode. She is also heavily pregnant right now, so I feel very lucky she could make it to the studio today. Welcome to Self-Dom.
Thank you so much for having me.
She brought over healthy Anzac biscuits.
I like cooking and these ones are healthy. They've got lots of seeds in them to help with your hormones.
And the best thing is that you know my dietaries. Yeah. You know what I need in those cookies and what I cannot have in those cookies. So I don't need to check the ingredients with you.
No.
I just know that they're going to be amazing. So a big thing we're going to be touching on today is eating in tune with your cycle and coming off the birth control pill. You really changed the game. I think we met a year ago now,
Yep.
And you were the one who put me on my supplements, really encouraged me to get my bloods done, and finally my period is regular. I was saying to Daniel today, producer Daniel, that I was so tired today, and I was like, I'm definitely getting my period. And now I'm in tune with it. So I'm not like getting angry at myself. Why are you so tired? I didn't go for a run today. I just took I took cookie and crumble for a walk. And you've just helped me find balance. So
I'm so glad.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for you. I want to talk about what got you into wellness and into this whole career path.
So I've always been into health. I've been working in the health industry for my whole career. So I'm a sonographer. I do ultrasounds. And then I always struggled with my gut health and hormones and just feeling low energy. When I was 27, I was in Bali for a work conference and I woke up one morning and I was completely paralyzed on one side. And I ended up being diagnosed with MS. And that completely changed the game for me. So my specialist told me that I basically was going to feel that way for the rest of my life. And that was pretty much all I could do. But I'm the type of person that likes to go out and take action and try and find different things to try and make myself feel as best as I could. And that's where I came across functional medicine and started working with someone to help not fix me, but to manage my symptoms and make me feel better. And they told me there was so many things happening with my gut, my thyroid, my hormones. Once we addressed that, I felt like a completely different person. And I thought, so many people are just given a diagnosis. Doesn't have to be an extreme one, but it could be something as simple as iron deficiency or endometriosis. And they're just basically told to expect to feel pretty low for the rest of their lives. And I feel like there's so many things that we can actually do to manage our symptoms and change the way we feel, not just for now, but for our whole long-term health.
Yeah, wow, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, so that was 5 years ago now. So ever since, I decided to go down and study functional medicine and have been pursuing that path since. So I still do a little bit of ultrasounds on the side. I did have a baby 2 years ago, and that's when I decided that I was really going to pursue coaching, and that's basically what I've been doing.
Yeah, amazing. So whenever we jump on a call, you are so in depth. And sometimes you're like, let me know if I'm telling you too much, but I love it.
Yeah.
You know so much about the body. For someone who's new to this, do you think the best place to start is a blood test?
Definitely. However, a lot of the time when you do go to a doctor to have a blood test, they usually will say either everything is normal or it's part of being a woman, or it's just borderline low, take some iron tablets, for instance, or go on the pill. But the problem is when they're analysing blood work, they're using ranges based off 95% of the population. So you're compared to a male, you're compared to someone who's 90 years old, and you're also compared to people with underlying health conditions. So yes, you may be normal compared to someone who's 90, but for a 30-year-old woman, your ranges are probably not optimal. So that's why it's really important to use these optimal ranges, which is what I use, because they account for changes in gender and they exclude people with underlying health conditions. So we can actually start to detect as soon as something dysfunctions in your body and address it then, as opposed to down the track where the GP finally flags it as abnormal and then says, all right, now this is where we need to actually intervene and give you medication, or you need to have an infusion or something like that. So yes, it's really important to have blood tests, and regularly as well, but getting comprehensive ones done and getting them analysed a bit more specific to you.
I know, it just makes so much sense for us to have our bloods compared to someone who's optimally healthy at the same age.
Yeah.
It's so wild to me that in the medical system, we're compared to the average of everyone.
Yes.
And that was such an eye-opener to me because, as you said, I had that experience in the past with your conventional doctors who would tell me, your iron's low, I had an iron infusion. And then when I saw you gave me all these things I was low in, and it's really changed how I view health.
Yeah.
And that idea that we are in control it's empowering.
Yes.
Especially when you have people like yourself around you to help with the process. One thing a lot of the girls message me about is going off the pill.
Yeah.
And obviously other birth control forms as well. What would you say to them to prepare their body for when they do get off birth control?
So I think a lot of the time when someone's looking to get off the pill, they usually would go to their doctor and their doctor will just say, go off cold turkey, and that's basically it. But a lot of the time you'll start to see some sort of side effect, whether that be acne or irregular cycles or even post-pill PCOS, roughly at the 3 to 6 month mark post-pill. And that's because the pill depletes you of so many nutrients. And when you finally come off, then it doesn't happen straight away because your hormones have a 100-day life cycle. So those hormones, those synthetic hormones.
That makes so much sense.
Yes. They're still circulating within your body for 3 months.
But that's why after you don't, like for me, it took 3 months for me to get my cycle back. I had no symptoms, no acne. I actually felt like I looked really good for that 3 months.
Yep.
And then at the 3 month mark, it was like everything changed.
Yeah.
So that makes so much sense.
And so many people say the same thing because your hormones, those synthetic hormones, have finally started to be removed from your body. And then now your body is in a state of dysfunction. There are a lot of deficiencies, which means that your body isn't able to create more hormones, and potentially even things like iron and thyroid function will be depleted because a lot of your selenium, which is really important for thyroid function, and obviously iron and B vitamins are deficient, and that's where you'll see those other issues. But even things like having an irregular cycle or getting the acne after, and people struggle with that a lot of the time for a long time. The other thing I would say is, what was the reason for you going on the pill in the first place, or some sort of hormone therapy? Is it because you were dealing with really bad cycles or irregular cycles, or because of acne? Because if that's the case, then it's only masking the symptoms until you come off. And then once you come off, those symptoms are going to reoccur, potentially even worse, because you haven't actually dealt with the root cause. You've only just put a Band-Aid fix on it temporarily.
Oh my God, it makes me so angry. Like, this topic really grinds my gears because everyone goes to the doctor when they're 15.
Yes.
They've got acne or irregular period, and the doctor gives you the pill, and then you're on it for a decade, and you've been masking your symptoms for a decade, and then you have to deal with it now.
Exactly.
When you're in your late 20s, early 30s, and you've got a career, like the last thing you need is this stress.
Yes.
It's so frustrating that that's how the system works. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about Self-Dom and the podcast. This is such a driving force for me because I want to educate women to know that the doctor will give you advice.
Yeah.
But to get a few people's advice as well, do your own research and then make your decision, because the pill is an incredible tool.
Yes.
It has its place. It has its purpose. But if you're not sexually active and you're 15 and you're literally just going on it because of these other symptoms, let's try tackle those symptoms in other ways.
Yeah. And especially because a lot of people are prescribed the pill when they're, in their early teens. So they're only just starting to get a cycle. It can take up to a few years to actually have a regular cycle. So your hormones are still shifting quite a lot in that time. So then to go and take a synthetic hormone, it's going to shift your normal hormone profile. So that can potentially affect you down the track as well.
Well, we've been talking a lot about cycles. Can you explain what a healthy cycle looks like?
Yep. So it's not, everyone thinks it's like a 28-day cycle. You ovulate on day 14. And that's a lot of the time when I'm scanning someone, they'll come in because they've, fallen pregnant or whatever. And they're saying, I don't think I ovulated on day 14, or my baby's due on a different date to the due date based off your period. But our hormones do fluctuate. And even month to month, you may not necessarily ovulate on day 14 every single month. So your period can usually go for a normal healthy cycle anyway from about 25 to 34 days. And you can ovulate any kind of day roughly halfway through. But for some people, it's slightly less, and for some people, it's slightly more. You want to make sure you're actually ovulating as well. So yes, this is a little bit of a lot of information, but to know that you've actually ovulated, you'll get like an almost egg white consistency discharge. Your basal body temperature, so your body temperature first thing in the morning before you've even left your bed, will be slightly elevated. And you may also feel like a little twinge, some people do, as well as progesterone spiking, and that's if you do a blood test. So that's a usual healthy cycle. You may feel some slight cramping when you're actually having your period, but it shouldn't be anything that will affect your day-to-day life. So it shouldn't affect you from going to work or, being in crippling pain where you need to rely on pain medication. If that is the case, then that is not normal. And in terms of how heavy your flow is, you roughly lose about 50 mils in a normal cycle. So you can bleed anywhere from 3 to 7 days, and you may have a few days of spotting around that as well. If you bleed and lose less than about 30 mils, that is classified as a scanty period, so not heavy enough. And anything over 80 mils is classified as a heavy flow. You may want to know that a pad holds about 5 mils. So,
oh, what?
Yeah, which you think it would be potentially more.
Yes.
But yeah, it's about 5 mils. So that's how you could potentially
So
calculate.
what's the minimum? So you'd fill up 6 pads?
Roughly, yeah. So 30 to 80 is anywhere in that range.
What about a tampon?
A tampon, I think, is about the same, probably a couple of mils either side. Depending on if you're just using a regular size or a super tampon.
Wow, okay, this is so interesting.
Yeah.
Because I always thought, if you bleed, that's enough. It means you're having a period.
Yeah.
We were actually talking the other day about my cycle, about how even though my period's coming, I might not be ovulating.
Yeah.
What was it in my bloods again that made us think that?
So your progesterone is really low. So it's good to test at around day 21 if you're ovulating around day 14 to 18, because what will happen is it'll peak. So if we're not seeing that peak at around day 21 when you test your bloods, it's indicating that you're potentially not ovulating. Because you need that spike after the egg is released. That's just naturally what happens in your cycle. So if that's not happening, then that could indicate and it's called an ovulatory cycle. So yes, you still have a bleed, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you've ovulated.
Even though I am getting a period, I feel less in tune with the 4 phases of the cycle. Is this a common thing?
It definitely is, because when your body is under some sort of stress, whether that be from over exercising, under eating, not getting enough sleep, or not being able to absorb nutrients to create more hormones, you're not going to have those natural ebbs and flows of your hormones throughout your cycle. So usually we'll see shifts throughout the month of things like progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, and things like luteinizing hormone, which helps to grow the egg, and follicular stimulating hormone, same thing, helps to grow the egg. When we are stressed, it's going to suppress those hormones, because your body goes back to evolutionary times where when your body is in a state of stress, whether because it's not getting enough food, because it's releasing too much cortisol, it's not going to prioritize ovulation, because your body is not in the state to carry a healthy baby. And yes, that may not necessarily be your goal, but that's what your body thinks.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that in a society, in a world where you can have everything, our body can still go into this like fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting. So I love that I'm having you on the podcast, because I get to just ask you all the questions I want to ask you. But let's talk about nutrition and your cycle.
Yeah.
How can we be eating more in tune with our cycle to help us find balance?
So when we have our period, we're obviously losing iron and B vitamins. So it's really important to prioritize that. So getting in more red meat, that's going to contain your B vitamins and vitamin A as well. But also things like magnesium, because that can help support cramping and any deficiency in the electrolytes that you're going to lose throughout that time of the month. So that's really important to prioritize as well. So magnesium, things like dark chocolate, leafy greens. And that's why a lot of the time you do crave chocolate around when you've got your period, is because your body is actually craving magnesium. Yes, sometimes it does crave that sugar hit as well, because you're probably lower in iron, so you need that quick energy hit, so that your body's looking for a quick energy hit, which will probably be from chocolate, lollies, an easy quick carb source. Then when you come to ovulation, it's really important to prioritize things like choline, which you can get from eggs, because this can help with your egg quality and ovulation.
Yeah, everyone says eggs is so good for female health.
Female health, yeah, it is.
Like your egg for your egg.
Yes.
So,
I know.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. And then in the second half of your cycle, especially coming up towards when you're about to bleed again, calcium is really important, because there are a lot of studies that indicate that mood-related PMS symptoms can be because of calcium deficiency. So increasing your calcium to around 1,200 milligrams per day in that second half of the cycle, especially towards the week leading up to your bleed, can really help over time to manage your mood-related issues, whether that be low mood, irritability, unsteady moods. That can really help. So
if you don't have dairy, how can you get calcium?
So non-dairy sources are things like there is a little bit in oranges and broccoli, but your fatty fish, so mackerel, sardines, salmon cooked in the bones with the bones as well. Don't eat the bones, but that does. They will have quite a good amount of calcium too.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because we weren't taught any of this stuff
at
school. We're just taught that when you bleed, it's terrible and to hide it. And I remember when I got my first period, I didn't even tell my mom.
Yeah.
Like for ages.
I was the same.
I was so embarrassed.
Yes.
It's just wild. So I actually have a lot of young listeners, and I want them to be empowered by this and to know when they bleed, it's a sign of health. And, some people say that your bleed, it's almost like your monthly blood test.
Yeah,
in a sense of
that.
like
Yes.
you looking how many meals you're getting. And these key signs. Are you experiencing pain, bloating? Because as you said, we want to debunk this idea that it's normal to be in pain.
That's right. And it is a sign from your body as well. Even the color of the blood, and I know this is going...
No, we're TMI here.
But the color can be, if it's bright red, that is a good sign. Towards the end, it might start to get a little bit darker, and that's because it's that that end part, or if it's been exposed to air, then it can get a deeper red. But if you are experiencing big clots that are bigger than like 1 centimeter, then that again is another sign that something's not right. Your body is your biggest tool in telling you what is happening internally. So if you're feeling like your periods are fine, you're managing through them completely well, you've got energy, you're not having unsteady moods, then that is a good sign that your body and your hormones are well balanced. But if you are getting any severe pain, if you're bedbound, your fatigue is crippling, or you can't manage your moods, you're feeling depressed at certain times of the month, that is a sign internally that you need to dive deeper and investigate what is going on.
What are some like common diagnoses that you see with the people you treat when it comes to having symptoms like that?
So a lot of the time, endometriosis, but it's hard to diagnose endometriosis without having a laparoscopy. So that's surgery. But there are certain signs for that which can indicate there may be. So endometriosis is when your endometrial tissue, so the lining of your uterus, which sheds throughout the month, grows outside of the uterus. And that can either be in the uterine wall, so the adenomyosis, or it can even grow in things like the fallopian tubes, the ovaries, the bowel. There's even been studies or there have been cases where they found it in like the thyroid and the lungs. So it can actually move across the body. What it actually does is it can cause adhesions. So different parts of the bowel can stick to the uterus. And then when you actually go through the stage where you're menstruating, those parts will also shed. So that's where you get that intense period pain that causes, you to be bedbound, or you rely on extreme pain medication, because it's not just shedding from your uterus and coming out, it's shedding in other places as well.
Yeah.
Which is horrible, because so many people have to put up with that for so long. And it can cause other issues like infertility as well. And obviously nutrient deficiencies, iron deficiency, that's a big one. The other thing I see, but I also see a lot of people being overdiagnosed by this, is PCOS. And I do see this a lot in ultrasound, is someone's come in and they've been told as a teenager that they have PCOS and they've got cysts on their ovaries. But cysts are classified as over 3 centimeters. Anything under that is just a follicle, and you usually get one dominant follicle per month. Usually it's only one ovary. That's the dominant follicle that will release an egg, and that's where ovulation occurs. If you're getting multiple big cysts, which can happen, that can be because of a hormonal imbalance, but it can also be due to certain types of synthetic hormones, like the pill and things like that. But the other thing with PCOS is it's not just diagnosed on ultrasound. You also need to have a blood test to show if your androgens are high, so high testosterone, and also the ratio between luteinizing hormone, so LH, to FSH, or follicular stimulating hormone, is at a 2-to-1 ratio. So that can indicate that. And then you've got the symptoms as well. So irregular cycles, you may get weight gain, hair growth, so facial hair growth, and then you lose your hair. There's some of the signs too, body hair too.
So I want to talk about endocrine disruptors, because I was listening to a podcast yesterday which was saying, because as women, we are encountering so many chemicals with our beauty products, cleaning products, perfumes, and this is impacting our hormones so much.
Definitely.
What does the science show? And is this the reason we're seeing so much of this PCOS and endometriosis and infertility?
Yeah. So if you think about every single chemical we're exposed to, and people just think through food, or, if you're putting makeup on or things like that, but there are so many chemicals that we're exposed to. So yes, food, but our containers as well. So if you're using plastic containers and then putting hot food in there, that plastic is going to seep into the food, and then you're going to consume that.
I had my matcha in not a keep cup today, and I just feel like...
Yeah. One tip you can do is ask for 1 or 2 ice cubes in them if you have a hot matcha, because it can stop the plastic leaching into it. So that's
a good hack.
Tip. That's a tip. Or your coffee or anything like that. I know it's not going to be super hot, but if you want to avoid the chemicals from that. But also, yeah, if you're reheating your food in the microwave in a plastic container, that is going to, again.
And they all say microwave safe on there.
I know.
But
So
they're
I've
not.
just changed every single one of my containers to glass. So now I don't have that problem. But then in terms of even cooking, so if you're using like a Teflon pan.
I've heard my air fryer is shocking.
Yeah, air fryers.
Our place is coming out with an air fryer.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So excited.
But even the utensils you're using. So like if you're using, a plastic spatula, that can even seep into, and you'll notice over time, if you have it for a long time, it'll start to disintegrate at the top. And where is that going? It's going into your food. I know.
We're literally being born, like babies being born with microplastics.
Yes.
It's so crazy.
I know. And they're saying we're getting exposed to more and more every single year. So wherever you can, I know it's hard to avoid completely, but wherever you can, if you can make those changes. Same with all of the products that we're using. So many women are starting their morning off with like a 10-step skincare routine, then they're putting makeup on, they'll put something in their hair, they'll put perfume on. All of those are exposing us to hundreds of chemicals. So you can be exposed to thousands of chemicals before you even leave the house in the morning. Just think about like how that can affect not just your sex hormones, but even things like your thyroid hormones, which have a massive impact on things like your metabolism, your hormones, your energy, liver function, cognition. So it's really important where you can just try and minimize them.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting and super eye-opening.
Yep.
I want to talk about fertility.
Yes. I love this topic.
Yeah, you're obviously pregnant with your second, which is so exciting. What are some ways we can test our fertility?
So obviously looking to know, first of all, if you have a healthy cycle and knowing if you ovulate. So if you do go and get a blood test, checking your hormones, checking it around day 21 to see whether that progesterone has risen to ensure that you have ovulated. And then those sides, like I mentioned before, with the cervical mucus, the increase in basal body temperature, they can all indicate ovulation. So that's really important. But you also want to make sure that you have healthy egg quality. So making sure that you don't have any nutrient deficiencies. Another thing that a lot of people don't look into enough is their thyroid health. And this can be the cause of a lot of early miscarriages because your thyroid is not regulated properly. And not just looking at one marker, which is called TSH or thyroid stimulating hormone, but looking at multiple thyroid markers. So your TSH, your free T4 and free T3, which are the two that actually are created in the thyroid. TSH is actually created in the brain, and it works off the levels of T4 and T3. Sorry if this is too much information.
She's going nerdy on us. I love it.
I tend to, but it's my passion.
It's so good. She loves it.
Because these can indicate low or high thyroid function. So your TSH alone sometimes doesn't show much. And a lot of the time with the GPs, the range is really broad because they're including people with low thyroid function or hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism in there. So unless it's flagged as abnormal, they're not going to do anything, even if it's just within the range.
Which is such a wide range.
Because if it's, I think the cutoff, the upper limit is 5 for your TSH. If it is 4.9, it's not bold. So they're not really going to say anything. They might not even look at the number because it's not bolded. If it was 2.2 levels higher, so 5.1, then they may say, oh, your thyroid is out. Maybe we should do some further testing. But you're probably very symptomatic already by then. For females, ideally, our thyroid function or our TSH should be between 1 and 1.5. Anything outside of that can start to indicate issues with your thyroid function. And then looking at your T4, T3 as well, even thyroid antibodies. So this is the immune system that, if it's elevated, is attacking your thyroid. So that can cause long-term damage to your thyroid or thyroid destruction of the tissue. So you want to really just investigate that a bit more. And obviously things like iron, because that is going to really help with healthy growth of a baby. So if it's low or too low, your body may think that it doesn't have the support there, those nutrients there. So you may struggle to fall because of that.
Iron's an interesting one because people always ask me, how did you reintroduce meat? How are you finding that journey?
Yeah.
And I know it can be really hard because even personally, in January when mum was told there was no more treatment, I felt like I couldn't eat meat, weirdly enough. I don't know if it was like too raw or it just made me feel sick. And then we had our call the other week and I've really tried to incorporate mince and meat. What would you say to that person who really wants to incorporate meat because they know that there's so many health benefits for women, but they just don't, like it's not appealing?
Yeah. I usually say start small. So even if you can start with a little bit of mincemeat in something. So if you usually make like a lentil bolognese, add a little bit of mince into that because you won't really notice the difference. And then over time, you can add more in that.
It's just cooking it.
It is.
It's really difficult because I didn't eat meat for such a long time and then reintroducing it is really difficult. It's also a mental game because it can often come as a restriction. And then you're like reintroducing it but it's just so beneficial as a woman.
It is. The other thing is a lot of people who are deterred by meat have low stomach acid. And stomach acid is really important to help break down our food and absorb nutrients from our food. So that can often be a sign. And something that I always screen for when I'm working with a client is, are they deterred by meat? Because that can show that you've actually got low stomach acid and your body doesn't necessarily not want the meat. It's just that it can't process it. And you may also feel that when you eat it, you feel really sluggish or your digestion is off. And that's because your gut is working really hard to try and break down the nutrients because it doesn't have the digestive enzymes there to help support that and break it down.
So what can they do to improve those digestive enzymes?
So I always like to say try and have something bitter with red meat or with your food, with your fats. Or a fatty meal. It's gonna help to break down those fats and absorb them.
So is that rocket? What else?
Artichoke, pickled ginger, lemons, limes.
Yeah, lemon on steak is really good.
Yes, yeah. Even radicchio, which is that like purple lettuce. I like to just fry that with a little bit of like balsamic, olive oil, salt. It's delicious. I had that last night with some steak, and
it's perfect, balanced meal.
Another thing you could do, this isn't for everyone, so it's really case by case, but if you could have a little bit of, if you can tolerate it, apple cider vinegar with the mother, so that floaty bit, in some water, have that about 5 minutes before a meal. It could help to stimulate stomach acid, so it'll release more digestive enzymes and help. But for some people who have gastritis, apple cider vinegar or inflammation of the gut or the stomach, apple cider vinegar can burn, so that's not always the best thing. If it is, then definitely if you're finding you're burning when you eat that or consume that, then I would definitely say to look into the inflammation in your gut because that is also going to affect the way your gut releases digestive enzymes, breaks down your food and absorbs nutrients from food. And that will have a massive impact on the way you feel and other systems in your body.
Yeah, it really is interesting because I think that's something I really struggled with. My body wasn't able to break down the food and we're still working on finding out why I'm not absorbing the nutrients in the way that I should be. So it's a journey, and I think that's why you've got to speak to someone like yourself and do the bloods and get them read because you're probably hearing all this information like, where do I start? But, you know, when you have your bloods read by a professional like yourself, it does make sense.
Yeah.
I think this leads on to the next question so nicely, which is all about the different diets we see on social media.
There's so many out there.
I was literally listening to a podcast this morning, and I'm not going to say which one it is. I really love these girls, but they are very pro-veganism.
Yeah.
Which isn't a good diet if you can, if you have enough time to prep your meals and things like that. But because I have been listening to these girls a lot this year, that also had a part in me not eating meat as much because they're like, you know, you don't need to be eating as much meat. Obviously, the carnivore diet is extreme, but they always talk about how bad that is. Then they were telling me that you don't need to have electrolytes. They were telling me all this stuff. And I started feeling really depleted because obviously I'm running a lot as well.
Yeah, yep.
So then we had our call and you're like, you need to be eating more meat, this, that. And I was like, I am someone who has done a course in nutrition and still find myself getting so heavily influenced by social media.
Yep.
So I want to ask you, as a naturopath, as the professional, what actually does a healthy diet look like? And what is a way we can navigate all the different diets we see on Instagram?
I know everyone always says this, but it's all about balance. Anything that's too extreme, a carnivore diet, a vegan diet, for extended amounts of time is going to do damage in your body. You're going to get nutrient deficiencies. Certain systems, especially your gut, are going to suffer because of it, because you're not getting that variety. And I like to say, aim for 30 plants a week if you can, and change it up week to week. So you're making sure that there's enough diversity for your gut microbiome to thrive, because that is the basis of a healthy gut and that is the basis for a healthy body. So everything's functioning properly. I know there are so many different people out there that claim what they're following, the diet they're following, the lifestyle they're following is the way to do it. And it can be really convincing sometimes. You'll listen to it and then you'll be like, oh, they've stated facts from this study and yeah, it sounds legit.
And they're like, I've cleared my skin, I've fixed my PCOS, I've done this.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's the miracle diet.
But it's so generalized. So yes, I could say, you could tell everyone exactly what we're working on, the supplements, the diet, absolutely everything. But even if people have similar symptoms, chances are their bloods are going to be completely different. So it may not be the correct approach for them. So they might follow exactly what you do and not see any improvements or only slight improvements, but other symptoms are still struggling. And that's because it has to be individualized. And that's why it's really good to work with a health professional that can look into what is happening internally, but also look at your symptoms as well and correlate the two to then create a plan. Yes, not everyone has access to that, so it's not something that I'm going to say you need to do, but just following someone else who has acne or PCOS and expecting to get the same results from them is unrealistic.
It is. And, you know, I share my journey and hope to inspire people, but the main thing I'm trying to inspire is for them to go see a professional.
Yes.
Because it will work. And one of the things as well is that it doesn't just happen overnight. You have to really commit to the practice, the reducing the stress, which we haven't even touched on, which, you know, that's something we've dealt with because I've had so much stress in my life that even though I've been doing 80% of it right, I still am dealing with the absorption issues, the low iron, the low progesterone. And you were saying when your stress is high, it kind of counteracts everything anyway.
It does. So it's about managing that stress. Obviously, you've been going through significant stress in the last few months, so that is hard to avoid. But also, like, I get a lot of people come to me and say, oh, I've been following this diet or I've been taking this supplement for a month now and I'm not seeing any results. And first of all, I would to ask, how long have you been suffering from those symptoms for? Chances are it's a decade or a few years. Do you honestly expect that your body is going to improve and optimize overnight or within a week or two if you've been really struggling with those symptoms for that long? Like, so many systems would have been affected. It's not just, you know, your skin that has been affected and you take one supplement and that's going to clear your skin up overnight. It's going to be a whole cascade of different symptoms and different systems being affected over time. There's going to be inflammation probably driving a lot of it. And until you improve that, then nothing else is going to improve. And the other thing is I find a lot of people go to certain health practitioners and they've been told they have a parasite and they have SIBO and they have hormonal imbalances. And they're given like a whole list of supplements to take to try and fix everything all at once. And our bodies don't work like that. If we don't work on the fundamentals first, so usually it's lowering inflammation, optimizing digestion, then everything else you're going to take is pointless and pretty much just going to go straight through you. So it's going to be a waste of time and money. So it's really important, and I like to do this, and we're doing this, is we're working on things in phases. If we didn't optimize your inflammation first and your gut, then hormones wouldn't have started to regulate. If we just went straight in for your hormones, chances are you wouldn't have felt those improvements. Your skin wouldn't have started to clear because we would have just gone for, yes, the big issue, it's the one that you want to target the most, but sometimes, and a majority of the time, you actually have to work on something deeper that you potentially can't see before you can actually get to those deeper issues.
Yeah, I think it really highlighted this whole journey that you have to be patient and patient with your body, and how amazing it is that our body tells us that something isn't right.
Yeah.
Supplements have played a big role in my own healing journey. My whole life, I thought, if your diet's good, you don't need supplements. I think that still sits as true.
Yeah.
But I think it is really hard in a modern life where we're rushing and everything to hit those nutrients. And I think the more I discover that the food doesn't have as much nutrients as it once did. So when I started taking an omega-3, for example, I thought, but I have salmon, I have anchovies, I have these amazing things, but it's not in our food as much as it was. Do you think that supplements are a necessity?
I think there is a time and a place for people to have supplements. They shouldn't be something that you need to rely on for your whole life.
It's too expensive.
It's very expensive. There are certain supplements that you can take, like magnesium, that you could have for your whole life, and that's
I take
fine.
so much magnesium though, because everyone knows I'm obsessed with my soda electrolytes. They have magnesium. I take 3 magnesium capsules. I take a lot of magnesium, but I would be chewing through it, I feel.
Yes, yeah. And when your body is stressed, it's going to churn through your electrolytes and magnesium as well. So you're going to need more of them than the normal person would.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with supplements, there's usually a reason for it. It's because your body needs that. It's deficient in something, and we are supplementing with it until we can get it back into an optimal range where your body can continue to do its thing and work optimally again and doesn't rely on it anymore. It doesn't have that deficiency anymore. So there is a time and a place, definitely. I find that I do recommend certain supplements, but again, just taking a generic supplement, a lot of supplements that you can buy in the chemist are not great in quality as well. So people will say, I'm taking a magnesium supplement, but I'm still struggling with cramps or DOMS, or my bloods show that I'm still deficient in magnesium. And that's because they're using a really cheap form
and fillers.
A cheap form of, say, the magnesium, which isn't absorbed well, and it just goes straight through.
Yeah, it's super interesting because I don't want to be taking all these supplements for the rest of my life because it takes up my entire handbag and my carry-on is just all supplements. However, I'm dedicated to the cause right now.
Yeah, you're doing so well.
I want to go back to the pill.
Yeah.
Just because I know my listeners will be thinking, if they can't afford to see a functional doctor like yourself and get this, protocol, what supplements could they take that, most people need if they've gone off the pill?
So definitely looking into things like zinc, because that is going to be depleted in when you're taking the pill.
And how do you know if it's a good quality zinc? Because a lot of people would go to, Chemist Warehouse, which has so many amazing products, but there is also so many products. So what one do you pick? How do you know?
I always look for a zinc biglycinate. It's a form of zinc, and it's a form of mineral that is really well absorbed by the body. So it's the chemical structure that actually makes it different to something like a zinc oxide or something like that. But it actually can be absorbed by your body and utilized. And getting around 25 milligrams a day, roughly, can help replenish those stores over time. Again, it's not going to be a one size fits all, but that is something that generally you're going to see a lot of deficiency in someone that's been on the pill. Looking at your B vitamins, but making sure they're methylated and activated, because a lot of us do struggle with actually activating them in our bodies. So there is quite a big percentage of the population that does have a genetic mutation. It's not it's not bad, but it makes your body struggle to convert the B vitamin into the methylated form, which means then you struggle with trying to actually utilizing the B vitamins. So that's why they say look for a prenatal supplement that contains folate, not folic acid, because a lot of people can't convert folic acid, which is the synthetic form, into folate, which is the active form, which your body needs to help create a baby. It prevent those birth defects. Other things I would look at is supplementing, not necessarily supplementing with selenium, but ensuring that you're consuming enough selenium.
The Brazil nuts are my favorite.
Yeah.
Like this morning I have my Brazil nuts, my coconut yogurt. I actually found coconut kefir.
Oh, you did?
I love it. It's
good.
Hard.
It could be hard to find, but yeah, it's really good.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Berries and my seed cycle, and then I've gotten really into hemp seeds.
Yes.
But I'm just putting seeds and nuts on everything now because they're so good for you.
They are, and they contain lots of nutrients that can help with things like liver detoxification, which is really important when you're coming off the pill. So supporting foods that support liver detoxification are going to help eliminate the synthetic hormones quicker to ensure that you're not getting that post-pill or those post-pill side effects. So things like your bitter veggies, polyphenols, so like your berries, your red and purple fruit, pomegranate.
Yes, I've got pomegranate here.
Yeah, I know.
I've been eating the white part.
Yes,
you told me to eat.
You just need a little bit.
It's so yuck.
Yeah, it's bitter, but it does definitely help with your gut health and lots of other things in your body. And then there's lots of nuts and seeds as well that can help with liver detoxification too. So looking for those foods to help balance your hormones.
So the listener might be thinking, well, this just sounds really expensive. All of this sounds too expensive. I can't afford pomegranates. I can't go buy all these supplements. I want to debunk this myth that living a healthy life is expensive. What are some ways you can live healthily, affordably?
I think just going back to the basics. So I think a lot of people expect that to eat healthy, you need to have all of these fancy powders and bone broths and all of these little things that you can buy from a health food store, which are probably way too expensive for the amount that you're getting. And that's not necessarily required for a healthy diet. If you go back to the basics, you're eating meat, fish, veggies. That's very simple. It's not going to cost a lot of money.
And eating in season and mixing up your veggies in that way, I have found so good. Like the imperfect picks at Harris Farm. I just see what they've got. Even last night I made mince and then I got all these random mushrooms.
Yes.
Like the weird different shapes. And I was like, this has so many different nutrients for my gut. I love
your
this.
liver.
And I was like, just eating veggies and meat and what's in season, it's actually not that expensive.
No, it's not. And you don't have to look at it like you need to, have a greens powder to be healthy. A lot of the time the greens powders,
I've heard they're not that good.
No, they can actually affect.
They actually have given me like wind and TMI, but like I've had a few and I'm like bloated and sore afterwards. Is that normal?
It can be. It's not supposed to be. But it can also affect things like your thyroid as well, which is going to affect digestion. So it can slow down digestion and affect your energy levels too. I know people say, oh, but I can't afford to buy veggies, so I'll just put some greens powder in. But that's going to cost you a lot more over time than just buying the fresh produce. Even buying the frozen mixed veggies sometimes at Woolies, I think they're like $5 for like a kilo. You can get the organic ones as well. That is a lot more cost effective. So for some clients who are really struggling, I just suggest go and buy a bag of frozen mixed veggies. At least you're getting your veggies in. Then you can buy chicken or tuna or salmon for relatively cheap.
And frozen too.
That's right. And then just incorporating that with some healthy fats, sprinkle some seeds on or drizzle some
boiling
olive oil.
eggs.
Exactly. You can really just, if you simplify it, you're going to find that it's not going to cost you as much as what you expect.
Yeah, and I love what you said there because we see all these fancy powders and things, and if you can afford it, amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to not benefit you, but it's not the most important
right,
thing.
yeah.
Like the most important thing is how nutrient dense your plate is. And that's been a big eye opener for me because I often, I get the fancy powders and I'm like, oh, it's fine. It's replacing this. And I think the biggest thing when it comes to living a healthy life is preparation.
Yeah.
I think having a fridge full of food, spending a few hours, whether it's boiling eggs, for me, it's prepping mince. And I always have some cooked mince. And I've been making these LSA meatballs. So it's just mince and LSA,
Yum.
egg, garlic, onion, and then making meatballs. And that's such an easy on-the-go snack and it's super affordable.
Yeah.
But if I don't have those things prepped, I will go for the protein ball at the shop and they are expensive and don't necessarily have the best ingredients.
That's right.
So if you prep, it is affordable. And also I think people think, oh, well, because I have this salad place I love in Bondi. It was really healthy. It was $40. It's stupid expensive.
Wow.
So that's when healthy eating looks expensive because
Yeah.
you're like, oh, well, it's cheaper to get fast food or even a Subway.
Yeah.
But if you just prep it at home, take your food in, it can be really affordable and it's really rewarding.
It is.
When you eat the food that you've cooked.
And you feel so much better for it.
You know what's in it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that it's going to be so time consuming and they're going to have to use a whole day to prep all their food. But honestly, if you just chop up a few veggies, roast them in the oven, I mean, you can do that. It takes you 5 minutes to chop them up and then half an hour later, they're cooked.
They're ready. And you can prep them. Like sweet potato is so good.
Yeah.
Pumpkin.
Yep.
And you just have it in the fridge.
That's right.
I actually didn't have this on our list of questions, but I really want to ask you about it. Seed oils. They're really it's a tense topic, I would say, in the wellness world. That podcast I was talking to you about before with these two vegan girls, they were saying that there's no issue with seed oils, but then why has there been such an uproar about how bad they are?
So they can be inflammatory, and it also depends on if you have a chronic condition as well. So for things like endometriosis, seed oils can actually flare up your symptoms. So it can be case by case basis, but they tend to, it's also the ratio. So for instance, omega-6s and omega-3s. Omega-3s are a lot more anti-inflammatory.
That's like your olive oil.
Yes, your fatty fish.
Avocado oil.
Chia seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts. They're all really rich in omega-3s. Omega-6s are things like vegetable oils, peanuts, tofu, corn, eggs. If you want to have a higher ratio or a higher consumption of the omega-3s to the omega-6s.
But it doesn't mean sixes are bad
No,
per se.
definitely
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah.
You just want to have more in your diet of the omega-3s. So have a higher ratio of omega-3 rich foods to the omega-6 rich foods, because that's going to help with inflammation in your body. So reducing inflammation, but it also has a big downstream effect on like your hormones, your energy, your brain function as well. And then if you do look to have a baby, omega-3s are really, really important for healthy baby brain development.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because I was getting so strict about it where I was taking my own milk to the cafes and when my skin was bad and anything that was inflammatory, I became really scared, which also creates a restrictive eating pattern, which also creates stress, which is going to impact your skin again. So I've kind of just let go of it.
Yeah.
I would never cook with vegetable oil in my own house, but I also think I'm not going to I'm going out for dinner with 7 friends tonight. I'm not going to ask the waitress, what oil do you cook your food in? Like 80-20 rule.
That's exactly
Let's
right.
stop demonizing foods in general.
If you're eating mostly at home and you're not using seed oils at home, you are doing an incredible job. You've got to be realistic, and that's what I like to say. If you are going to say, I'm going to cut out all seed oils, I'm not going to eat anything with
that was me, and
any
it was
sugar,
it was actually antisocial and depressing.
And chances are you're not going to stick to that regime for a long period of time. You might be super strict for 1 or 2 weeks and then you're like, that's it, I'm falling off the bandwagon. I can't do this anymore. It's better to, like you said, do the 80-20 rule, be able to go out, enjoy it a bit, because that is going to make sure that you're sticking to this lifestyle for a lot longer. It's a lot more achievable. You're going to see better results from that than just going hardcore, all or nothing, and you're probably going to stick to it for a week or 2.
Yeah, I think that's such good advice. And I think the theme that I've seen with you and all of our meetings and this conversation is balance. And I
Yes.
know it's such a term that we throw around so much, but it really is about balance. Like living a healthy life is so much more than just what you eat. It's the time you spend with people, it's the stress in your life. Do you have living a purpose and a passion?
Yeah.
And I think when I see you talk, you're living in your purpose and passion. Like you're so passionate about what you do. And when we speak, you just want to help and it's so infectious. So I'm just really grateful that you could come over today and record.
Well, I'm so happy that you had me on the
Yeah, it's
podcast.
been so nice. So I always end the pod with the same question,
Yeah.
which is what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say to listen to my body. My body was telling me, giving me signs that something wasn't right, and I just ignored it for years and years and years. And I feel like so many people struggle with the same thing, where something's happening in their bodies, and they kind of just dismiss it. Life's too busy. I didn't have time to book in for the doctors because I'm working, and I can't go on the weekend because I've got to see, I've got all these events on. So I just put it off and put it off until it got to the stage where it was so bad that I was forced to go to hospital and deal with it like that. Not saying that if I hadn't addressed it earlier that wouldn't have been the case, but just listen to the sides of your body. Your body is your home. It's the only place that's going to be with you forever. So if you're not properly listening to it and nourishing it and taking care of it, having rest days when you need, not always having to be super restrictive with your diet, just having that balance, it's going to be so beneficial for your health long term.
Yeah, amazing advice. I hope anyone listening who's feeling out of balance, take control.
Yeah.
And make those first steps, because that first step is the hardest. But then when you meet someone who you connect with, they guide you.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be on our next journey now, which is getting my body prepped for fertility, which is so exciting.
It is so
and
exciting.
yeah, you made me feel really good about it. You're like, you've come at the right time. We're going to prep your body.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's amazing. So thank you so much
Thank you
for joining me. So you've had such a positive impact on my life. And if any of the girls want to get in touch with Vic, you can contact her at victoria@sanawellness.com.au. She offers free health consultations so you can discuss your health concerns and more, talk about your goals, your journey. So yeah, her link is in her Instagram bio. Your Instagram bio is
Sana, then there's 2 underscores wellness.
perfect. Trust me, she's your girl. And yeah, I will see you on the next episode.